Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. Welcome to the second day of Wild Apricot's Membership Growth Online Summit. This week we have a free webinar every day of the week to help you grow. And so maybe a few of you joined us this morning. We talked about Facebook ads, and yesterday we had John Hayden telling us all about how to set up an online marketing funnel. And now we are about to learn how to create a Google ad campaign. So how to use Google Ads to get the word out about your organization. And if you're a nonprofit or charity, this is of particular interest because you get $10,000 of free Google AdWords. So Jason and Mark are going to show us how to do that. But before I see more people logging in, so I'm just going to introduce myself here. My name's Lori. I'm the community manager, and on chat, helping you with your questions or any technical issues is Terry Ibell. He's our content manager. And just keep in mind, as participants, you are muted, but you can use that chat box, and we really encourage you to do that and ask your questions during the webinar, and we're going to try to make this as interactive as possible. And if you're on Twitter, today we're especially asking you to tweet because you could win a prize. So use the hashtag WA Summit 2016 or at Wild Apricot, and you can see that at the bottom of the slide. And there's going to be 2 lucky winners. For whoever tweets the most, we're going to give away the ultimate guide to Google AdWords. And thanks to Jason, Shim, our presenter today, you could also win a free membership to N10, the Nonprofit Technology Network. And those memberships range anywhere from $70 to $500 a year. So these are pretty good prizes. So definitely tweet out some of the good stuff you're seeing, grab screenshots or do whatever. And today and yes, we are recording this, and we record everything, and we'll be sharing all of that in emails and follow-up blog posts, and we'll have all the sessions recorded and sent to you next week. And today we have a special webinar sponsor that I'd like to introduce you to. It's GuideStar, and GuideStar is the world's largest source of information on nonprofit organizations. And some of you maybe received an email about the summit through them. But what this means, if you don't know about GuideStar, you should sign up and create a profile with them because they get 7 million people visiting their site on a regular basis, checking out nonprofit profiles. And so if you haven't already, signed up, and here's an example of what a profile might look like. But what this does is it shares your story with the rest of the world for no cost, And sorry, is my sound? Okay, sorry, I was told my sound might be off.
Oh, now you're back.
Okay, everyone can hear me? Just put it in the chat box if you cannot hear me. Just checking here. Okay, so as I was saying, you can sign up for GuideStar by visiting, you can see it at the bottom there, guidestar.org/update, also on the bottom of the screen. That's guidestar.org/update. Maybe Terry, you can share that in the chat box. But basically, it's the way to get your nonprofit story heard, especially grant givers will find you in this database. It's about coming together as a sector as well. So thank you, GuideStar, for co-hosting this webinar with us today. And now I'm going to jump right into it. So our presenters, Jason Shim is, aside from being a friend, he is also the Associate Director of Digital Strategy and Alumni Relations at Pathways to Education, which is an amazing organization that helps low-income high school graduates transition to post-secondary education. But Jason is known in the sector as a digital expert, and he's all over the place. And he's also a certified Google partner, and as well as the newest board member to the Nonprofit Technology Network, which is why you can win a free prize today. And outside of work, he also runs the Canadian Nonprofit Technology LinkedIn group. So I know a lot of you are Americans logging on, but up here in Canada, we have this great LinkedIn group run by Jason, and it's where you can post and find all things related to tech for nonprofits. And also joining us is Mark Hallman. Mark is the president of Digital Evergreen, and he's worked with charities and nonprofit organizations across North America, helping them strategize and execute their digital marketing plans. He is also a Google partner and makes sure he helps organizations get the most out of their Google ad grants. So the two of them have put together this great presentation today. And oh, sorry, I forgot to mention outside of work, Mark loves playing with Lego, and he's a lifelong Blue Jays fan, which we're here in Toronto right now, so we're getting excited for the new baseball season. Okay, so Jason, I'm just going to unmute you guys over there and give you guys presenter control. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Excited to have you.
All right. Thank you very much, Laurie, for the very kind introduction.
Welcome.
All right. And then so we're going to get started here. And so thank you, everyone, for joining us today for How to Be a Google Ads Superhero. And we're just going to hop straight into it. So this is going to be a fast-paced presentation. And as Laurie mentioned, please use the hashtag WA Summit 2016, and we'll be doing a prize drawing at the end. Here is a sort of a superhero depiction of Mark and I. And you can check out nonprofitsuperhero.com if you want to see the full video. But if you ever need to convince people in your organization to use Google AdWords to promote your organization in a really fun way, we also have a video that can help make that case for your organization. So every superhero has an origin story, and we just want to share ours here. So our origin story is as follows.
7 years ago,
two guys
in a small room
with a stack of Cosmopolitan magazines. Now, why? Now, this may sound really strange, but that was one of the very first tips that we got when working with Google AdWords was, read Cosmo magazine, because the way that a Cosmo magazine is structured can really help you in terms of developing your own kind of ads and ad campaigns. Because when you think about it, the Cosmo magazine is designed to get quick attention and action at the checkout counter.
So we're going to hop in here and start talking about Google AdWords, and that's why we're here today. Sorry, so hold on 1 second here as we get this back up. So they see your whole screen, right?
Yep.
Minor technical difficulties. Just bear with us for 1 second.
Sorry, there you go. Yeah, so for those of you who are unfamiliar with Google AdWords, we're just going to give a quick overview here. What it is when you are Googling for certain things, the ads that pop up, the ones in the yellow, those are what Google AdWords are, and that's what we're going to be speaking about today and how your organization can harness these. So what Google does is that there is an AdWords grant that's worth about $10,000 a month in in-kind revenue. So that's not a cash grant that you're receiving. It's an in-kind grant for advertising revenue.
And we're going to hop into some keys to success of Google Ad Grants right away here. And for Jason and I, the first key of success in Google Ad Grants is read, and always be learning. When we first started out about 7 years ago, our first foray into AdWords was obviously opening our account up, but secondarily, we bought books, we geeked out a bit, we read books, we read blog posts, and that's kind of the first step into AdWords. And following the superhero theme here, we weren't born with it. So like Superman, who came from the planet and was born with his superhero powers, Jason and I actually had to learn our skills. And that's what we want. If there's one thing to take away today, this isn't something you're born with. It's something you can work towards in your career. And again, reading and practicing your craft is going to go a long way.
I wish I could say that I was born with, the natural, talent for doing AdWords. But the thing is, most of us are going to be more along the lines of Batman and Robin, just regular, people that had to train. I believe the story is that Batman had to go away for 5 years into the mountains, to train to become a superhero. And that's, what we really want to reinforce with everyone is that you can start with nothing. And, if you apply yourself and, the time that's needed to learn it, you can become an AdWords superhero. So if you're a nonprofit marketer or a fundraiser or membership manager, pretty much almost any role within a nonprofit, some of the key points is that Google AdWords Grant will help your organization. Almost every single organization that we've worked with has seen a boost in their traffic to the website, has seen better results in terms of people finding their organization. It's great professional development. It's a very transferable skill as well. So this is a skill that you can use across many organizations. No matter where you are, AdWords is pretty much everywhere. So in terms of what you can expect from today's presentation, what we're going to go through is, the current state of the world. Where are we at? Some reality checks. We're going to do several of those throughout the presentation. How to build a basic campaign, testing and optimization, reporting, and how to keep everything sustainable. So, how do you keep everything running after you get everything set up?
So what do people do when they need help? This is my son, Jack. He's the guy I play Lego with, as Lori mentioned. And Jack's on the screen here because, like every typical 4-year-old, he likes riding bikes, he likes playing Lego, but unlike our childhood, Jack will never know what a phone book is in reality. He probably won't use encyclopedias, but Jack does know how to use a smartphone, he can use an iPad, and he knows how to use our laptop. Jack also knows that when mom and dad don't have an answer for him, we can Google it.
And this is a photo of my family here, my sister on the left and my father on the right. And, for most of my life, I was used to being able to ask my father for, help with many things. He's an electrician and a general contractor. However, in recent years, when I asked him, hey, Dad, how do I fix the toilet? He actually responded with, like, why don't you just Google it? And that to me really reflects, it crosses generations, whether it be, Mark's 4-year-old son or my father who's in his 50s, that, everyone, turns to a search engine to find the answers that they're looking for. And the reason we're talking about Google today and not Bing and Yahoo is simply, obviously, we have the $10,000 grant from Google, but the other part is that in North America right now, roughly 80% of people use Google as their primary search engine. So what are people searching for in your community? So for this answer, we turn to Google Autofill. If you've ever played with Google Autofill, you just type in a few words and see what pops in for the rest of it. And I just want to show you a few examples here. So this is an example, you punch in, I'm 30 and, I need a career and live at home and never had a job and lost. These are actual searches that people are conducting on Google. And, you should think to yourself, does your organization address any of these kind of things, or could they help, someone who searches any of these? Here's another example, help, I am stuck. The first result is for a ringtone, but the rest is, I'm stuck in a rut, I'm stuck, I'm stuck in a loveless marriage. Again, these are actual searches that people are conducting. And the last one here is, where can I get help? And again, the autofill is quite sobering. Where can I get help for depression, to pay my rent, for anxiety? Where can I get help with my rent? Again, I'm struggling with, what are people filling in here? I'm struggling with, depression, with my faith, with life, with my divorce. If any of you, listening to this webinar today, if your organization can help with any of these items, these are things that people are actually searching for. But more importantly, these are cries for help from people around the world, from, the sons, daughters, relatives, and sometimes these are quiet cries for help. They could be in another bedroom. They could be sitting on the couch next to you, searching silently for answers. And that's what's different about, modern searching, is that, people could be sitting next to you on a bus, searching for, answers for some of these kind of life questions, and your organizations may be uniquely positioned to help them with it. But here's the thing. Your organization does great work, but can people find you? Because if not, here's what could happen.
So this is our first example of a keyword, adopt a kitten. So we want to make sure, as an organization, if we have programs and services available, we're having our ad serve at the appropriate time. So if someone's searching for an adopt a kitten, your ad about a kitten pops up. That simple.
And you may be missing opportunities to help. So if you didn't have Google AdWords set up and you provided a service for people to adopt kittens, that may be a missed connection or a missed opportunity. And that's what we're here to help you with today. Now here's a quick reality check. I have too much money. Which charity should I give it to? Search no one ever. So the reality check that I want to bring home is that people don't search like this, at least not anyone in a meaningful sort of way. So you really have to think in a much broader kind of way. And to be honest, like when people are searching, they're thinking about themselves. They're thinking about their problems, their day-to-day issues. When you do the autofill for I have two, it's I have too much stuff, too many clothes, too much homework. So you really need to work on making sure you're empathetic and that you can understand, what your potential, members or volunteers or people that you're trying to attract to your organization may be looking for. So everyone is thinking about themselves, just like you. So how can you help? Well, the first step is applying for Google for Nonprofits, and that's pretty straightforward. Just search Google for Nonprofits, and you'll come up with this page. And it's a pretty straightforward process. You join the program. The Google for Nonprofits program includes a whole bunch of other benefits as well, but for today, we're just going to focus on the ad grants portion. The other part to keep in mind is that Google AdWords grants vary by country. So if you're in the US, it's 501c3s, and if you're in Canada, registered charity or nonprofits are eligible. And depending on what country you're in, there's different eligibility requirements, but for whatever is the registered charity designation in your country, you should be eligible for the program.
So our next step here is going to slow things down a little bit and walk through how to build a campaign. And the reason we're doing this is to show that it's not something that's overly difficult. It is nuts and bolts. It's a little bit technical, but it's something you can learn. And when I first opened the dashboard, 7, 8 years ago, I was overwhelmed. So we're going to take some of that away from you, some of the mystery away from you, and do a quick walkthrough here. And the first reminder is that Google AdWords is more than just the ads. There's a whole lot of process to it. There's goal setting, there's keywords, there's ad groups, there's the ads themselves, of course, and then the regional settings for where you're targeting and budget, etc. And this is an example of an ad we have set up for Hospice Waterloo. Just so you can see, this is the final product. This is what it all comes back to and what's served up on Google search returns. But now we're going to walk through the back end of it. So SuperHero campaign structure, and to have a successful AdWords account and successful campaign structure, it's really important to kind of break things down into levels. And the top level is the account. That's your overarching ownership, which email is associated with the account, and that's kind of more the Google for Nonprofits application piece. The second level down is your campaign level, and this level here is where we talk about our budgetary settings, it's our geographic settings, and when we're serving the ads, those kinds of things. Below that, we have our ad groups. So the ad groups are more tightly themed pieces within the campaign. And below those items, we have ads and our keywords. And it's important to think of this as kind of in a siloed situation. So although we have our overall account, we also have our campaigns. And our campaigns, to give an easy example, we could break out into our events campaign versus our programs campaign. For Hospice of Waterloo Region, we have our events campaign, which talks about our 5K walk for hospice. We have our wine tasting, we have all those items there within that campaign. Then under that, we have our ad group. So we'll have a distinct ad group that talks about the walk. We have an ad group for the wine tasting. We have some other ad groups for other fundraisers throughout the year. So we keep it very siloed. The other campaigns where we talk about programs and services, those are off to the side. And we'll talk a bit more of that as we go forward here. But by having this campaign structure, it's going to help you do a few things. It's going to help you, one, be consistent, so you're using the same rules and following the same structure going forward. So if it's yourself or someone else coming back into the account, it's easy to kind of pick up where you left off. That also goes to stay organized. I always ask my clients, and when I'm building campaigns myself, be pretty literal in your campaign structure. So for your events campaign, it's okay to call it events. Or if you're breaking it out by a city because you have members in different cities, you could talk about events Toronto versus events Calgary. It's also important to focus your targeting. So that comes back to the relevancy part. It's important to have ads that are serving up only in the relevant situation. So if you're serving ads for programs or for events or for membership drives within a certain city, it's not always relevant to have it off in a different city as well. So if we're talking about being in Toronto, focus your ads in Toronto. And this also makes it easy for you to replicate your success. So if you find your 2015 fund run works well, you can replicate that for 2016, 2017 going forward. But before all that happens, you have to define your goals and talk about what you really want to accomplish. And these are some general goals, and we always talk about awareness of your organization, engagement, which could be downloads or actions on your site, usage of services and programs, obviously increased membership and donations with little asterisks there. And just to recap here, the levels we'll be talking about are your account, which is your overarching just rules, your campaign, which is where you kind of back up to your goals for if it's awareness or engagement. That's where you kind of silo things out by order. Your ad groups below that, so that's tightly themed pieces. So for example, if we had a youth campaign, our ad groups might be youth breakfast program and after school tutoring. And then our ads served below that. So youth breakfast program would have different ads than after school tutoring. And the keywords below that, again, would be very on point and relevant for each. So we'd have distinct keywords for a youth breakfast program. from after-school tutoring to help things stay very, very focused.
All right, so we're going to give you some examples of campaigns. So, we've shown you a bit of the theory, and we're going to show you sort of the practical side of it, of how you're going to apply your knowledge of these kind of hierarchies for structuring your campaign. So some recent news in Ontario was that our provincial government had announced that they were going to provide tuition for families with low income, that they would have it covered. So one of the things is that our organization had made a recommendation that was that formed part of that announcement, and we want to make sure that anyone who was Googling for it would find out more information through our website. So what we did was create a campaign called News. So keep this in mind that if you are an organization that there are topics in the news that may be related to you, you can set up campaigns around that as well, and you can be very nimble around that. And then we set up an ad group around Ontario free tuition, which people would be Googling for, and we set up a few ad groups, Ontario free tuition, the Ontario budget 2016, and Youth Job Connection program, which is one of the programs that was offered or being developed. And then we developed variations on a few ads. So, for people that were wanting to learn more about, the Ontario free tuition, that, average tuition will be free for students with family incomes under 50K. And then we also had Ontario to offer grants. Pathways applauds the government of Ontario for their support of education, new investments in youth. And the reason why we come up with variations of these ads is so that we can see what performs the best. And we will talk more about testing and optimization later. And so we ran those. And to show you some of the keywords that we're using, these are pretty obvious ones, but, just to show you, anyone who is searching for Ontario free tuition. So when you put a plus sign in front of each of these keywords in the first example there, is that anyone who uses those three words it would come up. So it could be in any order. So if they search, free tuition Ontario, free tuition Ontario, and added, a few different words as well, like free tuition Ontario SuperHero, the ads would still pop up. The square brackets refers to exact search. So only if people use that exact phrase would the search ads pop up. And then finally, the last one is the phrase search. So only if those words within the quotation mark are used in that specific order. And if any additional words are used as well, that's fine. So it could be Ontario Student Grant, SuperHero training as well. Then, that ad would pop up as long as those three words in that order, Ontario Student Grant, are used. So that's a quick example of a recent campaign that we had run for organization. And as a result, it was timely. People were searching for it. We actually drove about 5,000 clicks over to our website. So those are 5,000 people that weren't aware of perhaps that we had a part in making that recommendation into the government, but also we were able to provide resources in which people could learn more about this new program. So we're going to take you through some of the walkthrough pieces, but before we go through the walkthrough with Mark, keep in mind that this is the most basic elements. And when learning about AdWords, it's sort of like chess. It's easy to learn the basic rules, but you can spend a lot more time learning all the advanced parts. So if anyone has watched Shrek, it's sort of like the example when the donkey is talking about the Shrek is talking about ogres are like onions. There's many layers to them. Similarly, there's many layers to AdWords as well. So we're going to show you sort of the innermost kind of core layer, and then over time you can start learning about all the additional features as well. But here are the basics.
So this is a screenshot from your dashboard when you first pop into Google AdWords. And the reality is it can be a little bit overwhelming. You'll see we have over 20 buttons here. There's all kinds of words we're not familiar with. And that can be a little bit too much to start with. So as Jason said, it's something you can kind of work into. I always say when I'm talking to my clients, budget a bit of time per day. If it can be 5, 10, 15 minutes, every few days even. But it's something as you work within it and become more familiar, you'll start to understand it better. So we're going to do a walkthrough of building an actual campaign, kind of click by click, and talk through the different parts. Again, just to demystify Google AdWords. And so when you go back into the account yourself this afternoon or tomorrow, you'll have already seen it once, and it's not going to be too foreign to you. So the first piece here, they do make it easy. The first button we're going to press is that big bright red campaign button on the left-hand side. And when we do that, we have a couple of options pop up here. We have an option for search network with display select. You'll also see display network only, shopping, video ads, and app ads. And those are ones we don't have access to. So one of the limitations to the Google Ad Grants program is that we only have search network only and really only Google search. So that's when you go to google.ca or google.com and key words into there. So it makes it easy for us. So we're going to select the search network only. And this next part comes up here. So the very first piece is to name our campaign. For today's example, obviously, we call it SuperHero Training. We're going to select Search Network Only and All Features, which opens a few options for us, but not too many. Then down below, you'll see that we have this Google Search Network option. We have an option to include search partners, which is the Google search box across the web. We cannot use that. Again, it's Google Search only. So that's the top of here. If we actually roll down the page now, we're not clicking through, we're rolling down the page. The next part's going to show our devices. So for a typical account in the Google Ad Grants piece, we'll leave all devices eligible by default. If you have some very specific click-to-call campaigns, you might have mobile only, but for most of the ads, it works back and forth quite well. And the next piece is our location. So we're going to in this section here, we actually have Canada selected, but we're going to change that setting to go back to our San Jose example. So the next screen is when we do our advanced search and work on the location. So again, Google makes it easy here. If we know which area we want to target, we can simply type in the city name. We can also choose by province or state. We can choose by region. We can choose by city. We can choose globally, or we can choose right down to area codes. And you'll see when you type in San Jose, it's going to be a bunch of different selections here to add or exclude, which makes it quite handy. So you can have a campaign that targets your main cities with the gaps in between, or a couple different options there. And that's what we'll show next. So if we go into the radius targeting here, we were actually at the San Jose Convention Center a few weeks ago for NTC. And this example here shows how radius targeting works. So that's the convention center in the middle, with a 5-mile search around that area. You'll see the actual city limits of San Jose outlined around that. So it shows how you can kind of be really specific on your targeting, and that pays off in AdWords. For example, at hospice, we know that we can expand to roughly 25 or 35 kilometers around our buildings where people come from programming. If we advertise beyond that to other parts of Ontario or ads reach the US, it's really irrelevant for us. It's actually doing our people a disservice because we can't offer programs to the people in those areas. So it's really important to kind of be specific. But again, if you have a national reach or a statewide reach or a province-wide reach, it's okay to go a little bit broader. But just keep that in mind that you're able to kind of go broad or very specific depending on what your needs are. So after we picked our targeting as far as location, we can choose our languages. In this example, we're using English only. Again, if you have ads specific to a different language, where you're actually serving ads in different languages and have the keywords in a different language, like French, for example, you can choose French as a language, but it's very important to have that very much linear. If you pick French or Arabic as a language, make sure you're serving ads and have keywords in those languages as well. So that's why we have English only here. For the bid strategy, and again, this is all on the same page and campaign setup. The bid strategy, we have a couple options, and you'll see again, we have maximize clicks, we have target search page location, CPAs, ROAs, enhanced CPC. In my paid clients who are running either retail or for-profit things where ROI is hyper important, we do some of those strategies. In the Google Grants account, realistically, we're typically using manual CPC, and we're limited to $2 per click, and that's what we typically use. Google will only bid up to what it needs to get your ad shown, so by putting $2 there, you're being safe. And you'll also see our default bid is $2, and our budget's being set at $329 per day. I know we've talked about $10,000 per month. The reality is it's $330 per day, $329 per day. If you spend $329 per day, Google shuts the tap off and it resets the next morning at midnight.
So for those of you who are new to the term cost per click or CPC, every time you do a Google search, Google is actually running an auction on the spot. So this happens millions of times a day. And essentially how you can think about it is this is how much you are indicating you're willing to bid on certain keywords. Now, you're getting your in-kind ad revenue for free, up to $329 a day or $10,000 a month. But a way to think about it is that, for people that are paying for AdWords, that, how much are they willing to pay in order to be put in front of, certain kind of keywords. So an example is that, Mark and I used to work in the credit counseling space, and payday loan places are sometimes willing to pay up to $12, $15 per click to go to their respective websites. So when you're competing with higher bid rates in which people are willing to pay that amount for that kind of AdWords auction every time a search is made, you have to be quite creative with the kind of keywords that you're using and bidding on. And we'll talk more about that later, but just to give some background as to what CPC is, that essentially what we're doing is we're bidding for words that our people are searching for on a day-to-day basis.
So at the bottom here, again, we have the delivery method options. There's a few options here, and I think our next slide has that. Nope, so I'm going to go back. So standard delivery method just basically means Google's going to serve our ads evenly over time. So if you have 2 ads in an ad group, it'll basically say, over the day, we'll make sure the 329 kind of spreads out evenly. If you have a hyper time-sensitive event or something like that, you can also do accelerated. It basically means Google's going to try and spend your budget as fast as possible. Of course, it's search relevant and the number of people searching for your keywords, but they'll spend your money quicker. They have no problem doing that. And we'll also talk quickly about ad extensions here. We'll discuss it further later on. So this is just some extra pieces. So if you're in the top 2 ad spots, Google gives you some extra real estate. And we'll get to these later in more detail. The next piece is set up, I think this is the last piece in the campaign settings, is your scheduling. This is more for, again, retail or restaurants or people who are serving things live, but there is the option to have start and end dates. So if you had a 5K run that you're end on, May 15th, the last day to enter, you could have your end date in place there. And you're also able to pick day by day what your schedule is. So be it 12 to 12, that's possible. But if you're doing more of a service-oriented one where people are expected to click in or you're expecting to call into your office, maybe it is more relevant to have from 9 till 5, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., just to make sure people are there to answer the phone when they click your ads. This next section here, ad delivery and ad rotation, is how Google's going to let you play with your ads. So best practice is always have 2 ads in each ad group for split testing and just to see what's working and what people are clicking on. Optimize for clicks. This is for most advertisers. This is for people just starting out. This basically says to Google, whichever ad works best and people are clicking on, serve that one more often. There's other options here if you have conversion setups. If you're into the pro mode and you're into more familiar things, you also do rotate evenly or rotate indefinitely. And that basically says, Google, you know what, I want these 2 ads to be tested properly. Give them a fair crack for 90 days in the rotate evenly, or let them go indefinitely. And I know that one might be lower than the other one, but I'll deal with that myself. The next step, once we have our account settings in place, is to create the actual ad. And there's a couple options up on top here again. We're on text ad only. That's our limitation within the Google Ad Grant. And we have some rules here. So the headline's 25 characters, including spaces and punctuation. The next 2 lines are 35 characters each, again, including punctuation and spaces. And you'll see the last 2 lines here, we have our display URL and our final URL. Display URL is what's actually served in the ad, and the final URL could include your UTM codes, any kind of tracking codes, or it could just be a long, ugly URL you want people to see. Then it's not going to be shown to people. The display URL will be shown publicly. And this is what you'll see. This is as you're creating your ad, Google's going to show you a little test here, and you'll see how it lines up just to make sure it makes sense for you before you hit submit.
So here's the thing. How do you write a good ad? We just showed you an example of a ad, but how do you write a good one? And for that, we go back to Cosmo. This was part of the ultimate guide to AdWords. And one of the tips, again, they said, pick up a copy of Cosmo and read it, and just get an understanding of how, the copy is written. Because Cosmo has been the best-selling women's magazine since 1972. And, what applies well for print, that same principle applies well for Google searches and writing an effective ad. So here's the thing. A good ad is relevant, direct, and highlights the feature, advantage, and benefit, or FAB. And we're going to give you a few examples of ads that we've created that demonstrate this.
So again, as I talked about, your ad consists of 3 parts. It's your headline, description, URL. A few notes on that before we jump into some ad examples is you are allowed to use question marks. That can be in any line, the headline or description. So that could be, you know, how do I do something? Question for the headline. How do I cope with stress? How do I deal with grief? That's a good headline. So you have question marks throughout. The other piece is you cannot have exclamation marks in the headline. You are allowed 1 exclamation mark in the description. And the other best practice, which Google's kind of asks you to do, is no symbols in your ads, stars and that kind of stuff, and no all capitals. They don't want you screaming at the people who are reading your ads. This is one example we have for a good relevant ad, which is the Ottawa Humane Society, and it's a volunteers, obviously. And Ottawa Humane Society, do you want to volunteer with the animals? Check out our current positions. It kind of speaks to exactly what that person's searching for. So, you know, we experienced a really high click-through rate in that ad. For the Kitchener-Conestoga Rotary Lobster Fest, again, people searching for this, all-you-can-eat lobster, ribs and pie. Again, the most relevant ad you can have out there. This one, I think, upwards of 15–20% click-through rate. And we also want to talk about timely ads. So there is a bit of an echo on Google. So if you see something in real life, or there's something on CBC or CNN at nighttime, people search from their couch to get more information. So if this is a Nepal earthquake, you'll see that the UN and the Red Cross quickly put up ads. So as people are searching for more information with the Nepal earthquake, people can move right across their ads onto their website and hopefully make a donation.
Now here's the thing, landing pages. You know, have you ever been invited to a party that had like a really good invitation, but then when you arrived, it wasn't so great? You know, you don't want to replicate that kind of experience online for people. So when you have a landing page and you spent all this time creating an ad, make the experience wonderful when people arrive as well. You know, that's just as important. You know, you get people to the door, give them a great experience. So an example would be something like this. You know, this is one that we have for Pathways, that when people are searching for volunteer opportunities, they'll be served up with an ad, you know, volunteer with youth, help tutor high school students, and make a difference today. And what you would expect is that you would arrive on a page that gives you more information about volunteering. So this is you know, a good practice. You have a solid landing page. Now, one thing is don't bait and switch. And what I mean by that is, you know, have an ad that, you know, is offering something, and then when they land, it's actually something completely different. It's a poor user experience, and you'll actually get penalized for that kind of experience. And so an example is that if someone were searching for volunteering with youth, you know, don't dump them onto your front page. You know, they've already indicated they're interested in volunteering. You know, direct them to the relevant page with the information that people need, and don't make people do extra work. So this would be an example of what not to do. You know, if you had a youth volunteering ad and then drop them onto the front page, and then they have to click again to indicate their intent. You know, they've already demonstrated their intent, and so, you know, show people a good experience once they arrive. And now when it comes to testing, research, and optimization, you know, we take the example, you know, out of, you know, guys like Iron Man or Tony Stark. You know, his first Iron Man suit, you know, that wasn't the perfect one. You know, things were exploding all over the place. And similarly, when you're working with AdWords, you need to keep on iterating and improving over time. So, you know, this takes testing. Now, the best campaigns require preparation. You can't just jump into it and expect that everything's going to be perfect. You know, you need to learn for your organization what works best for you. We can't just, even as you know, experts on our end, you know, we can't just jump into an organization and say, you know, this is going to work, you know, for sure every single time. You know, we also have to, you know, test and optimize to see what works best for that particular organization. Now, as with any good kind of science experiment, you need a hypothesis. What is it that you want to test? And the kind of things that you could test would be, you know, these kind of ads. So these are ads that we actually ran for our organization. And we try to encourage people, there's this program called Echo Age, where children can donate their birthday parties and have some of the proceeds go to our organization. So, you know, looking for a party idea, birthdays that make a difference, you know, create a party in under a minute. And then you can start, you know, variations of the headline to see what might perform better. So, you know, need a fun kids party idea, you know, that actually performed a bit better at 1.91% rather than 1.59. And then the one that performed the best is, you know, the easy and quick kids parties, birthdays that make a difference, create a party in under a minute. Now, it may not seem like a big deal, 1.59% to 2.93%, but when you're talking about, a few thousand visitors to your website, that is a pretty significant conversion rate. And, don't discount the small incremental gains, because those are the types of gains that you'll see in AdWords. You don't see giant, like 20% leaps typically. You'll see increments of about, a percentage, a point or so or less, but, you'll see that gradually increasing over time. So the kind of variables that you can test are things like ad title, ad text, your landing page URL, the time of day that the ad shows, as well as geography. So, targeting different cities and seeing, what ad may perform best in, perhaps like a rural versus an urban area, or other, kind of postal code, geo-targeting kind of things. And as I mentioned, don't ignore the small gains. They can be valuable. Another neat tool that you can use is Google Trends for keywords. So if you just search Google Trends, you'll come up with a tool that helps you analyze certain keywords to test some of your hypotheses. So gifts for mom, when you look at this chart, many people assume that the big spike is Mother's Day, right? That seems pretty obvious when you look at it. Well, the actual spike is Christmas. So you have to replace your sort of anecdotal evidence with the actual evidence that is available through Google, through tools like Google Trends. You see a little spike there around May that indicates that the Mother's Day kind of bump, but the huge bump in search volume is actually towards the end of the year when people are searching gifts for mom. So how can you use that kind of information to inform the kind of campaigns that you might have for your organization, if it is seasonal, and move from anecdotal evidence to the evidence, to data that can inform some of your strategies. So keep calm and don't assume.
The other tool we love to highlight is the keyword planner. And the keyword planner is, we talked about keywords a little bit, and it's a foundation of the entire system. The keywords are what people type into Google in order to have our ads served up. So we have some assumptions, like Jason said, don't assume. We have some assumptions, but we also want to test. So we like to use a keyword planner, which is within the Google AdWords dashboard. It's one of the top underneath tools at the top. But there's some great ways to find some things here. And typically, I start with a list of 5 to 10 keywords that I think are relevant to my ad and to my campaign and my goals. But you can also type those keywords into Google Keyword Planner, and it'll give you a full list of the keywords that Google also think is relevant. And you don't want to just carte blanche add them all, because Google makes some assumptions that are wrong as well. But take a look at them, and you'll find some neat ways to expand your reach. You can also just put a link to your website in there and have Google crawl your web page to see which keywords they think are relevant. So that's a good way to kind of expand your horizons there with the ads. And we also talk about validating ideas. And the way we do that is simply by, example would be cats or dogs. What's more important for an organization to advertise, cats or dogs? Now, obviously, a humane society wouldn't just focus on one, so this is an example. But we make assumptions, and then we can go back and test. So if we tested for search terms for dog adoption, we tested for the search term cat adoption, we can see in our geographic area, dogs outnumber cats almost 3 to 1. There's medium competition, and it shows our suggested bids. So we're able to make some actual define some actual results here versus making assumptions. To take this further, if we had dog adoption, we put that keyword in solely, you'll see it returns a whole bunch of keywords are related. Dog for sale, adopt a dog, puppies for sale, rescue dogs. Again, all very relevant search terms, which might just help us expand our horizon a little bit.
So for testing copy, one of the things is that, if you're thinking of going to print with certain copy, you can also test it out on AdWords beforehand. And one of the campaigns that we ran was people donating their kind of air kind of flight miles. So we began on the assumption that people just want to donate some of their the rewards miles for just for its own sake. But as you can see, the campaign it was 0.35% click-through rate. But once we started thinking about it more, it's like, okay, why would people want to donate their flight reward miles for us? And it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe if they realized they didn't have enough to go on a trip, they'd be more compelled to click on that link. And that's exactly how it played out, for our hypothesis. User miles for good. Don't have enough miles to go on a trip. Donate miles to Pathways to Education, and that performed, about 3-4 times better than the original assumption that people just want to randomly search and give their rewards miles. Similarly, no one searches, I have too much money, which charity should I give it to? No one searches, I have too many rewards miles, what charity do I give it to? They're searching for something more related to themselves, taking a trip and such.
We're going to come back to ad extensions. We talked about that in the campaign setup, but the ad extension gives you a little bit more room to basically get relevance to your ad. And we're going to go through these different ad extensions. So the first one's your phone number. If you add your phone number, it literally shows up in your ad here, like the Capacity Canada ad. Again, it's something we want to think about. Do we actually want to have our phone number out there? Are there people live to answer it? But if you're someone who wants, calling in for members to call in, definitely put the phone number in your ad. On mobile, it's actually click to call, and you won't see the phone number here. There's a little gray button that on your mobile phone, you can just click that call button, and it'll dial right into you and take away a little bit of friction. We also have location sensitive. So this is Canadian feedthechildren.ca. Feed the Children obviously wants people into their office, so they have a location extension, which again shows 174 Bartley at the bottom there. Again, the one point to consider is, do you want people showing up in your office? Some places don't. So if it's valuable and people are trying to find you and do a walk-in, put the location there. If you don't want people showing up, you'd rather have them contact via email or phone, probably leave that out. Site links, again, we're going to use a Capacity Canada example. Site links are those 4 little blue buttons at the bottom there. And basically, this is a branded campaign. So if you search Capacity Canada, their ad pops up. But when people are searching by brand, typically they're not really looking for Capacity Canada. They're looking for the events, looking for About Us, programs, or resources. So by populating the site links at the bottom, you actually give that link right to the proper page on the website. Again, this goes further back to what Jason was saying about don't bring them to your home page and have them find things. Take them to the most relevant place. And last but not least, we have call out text. So I know we talked about the 25 characters, 35 for description, and then the URL. This call out text here, which is help where needed most, impact lives. Again, it's a bit more context for you. If you put this in here, it's not clickable, but it's something to add to your ad and talk about your organization with that little bit of extra space. And here's the good stuff, reporting. This is my most popular report by far for boards, for the executive level. And this search term report's found in your dashboard under dimensions. But basically what this shows, we've talked about keywords and what we have out there as far as us setting the context for the ad. This is what people actually key into Google, the actual keystrokes. So again, for hospice, we have grief counseling, Waterloo, hospice care support groups, advanced care planning, bereaved families. This helps you understand how people are searching for you versus how you think they're searching for you. So if you pop into this report, it'll again help you, either talk about new programs or just expand your advertising options. And again, it's just gonna help you understand your audience and what they're looking for and how they're trying to find you. One slide on Google Analytics. We're gonna keep it short and simple here. Plug it in. Analytics is a whole nother presentation for a whole nother hour. There's a little button you click to link the 2 accounts together. Please do it. Basically, it's going to allow you to pull all your data from AdWords into your analytics dashboard so you have a more complete picture.
If you Google how to connect Google AdWords to Google Analytics, the very first link will take you there and like take you to the exact page to click.
And again, what does management need? As someone working in AdWords, what do you want to provide to leadership? And these are the ones that I find the most helpful. We talked about search term reports, but campaign reports, which again, it's kind of a high-level thing. It's going to talk about how many impressions were served, how many times your ad was served on Google, how many times people clicked on your ads. It's your traffic reports. Your conversion reports, if you have a newsletter sign-up or a membership conversion, that'll show up in there as well as conversion, so you can see exactly how the ads are impacting your bottom line. And traffic reports. So this is back into Google Analytics, but it talks about how AdWords is faring versus your social media traffic versus your organic traffic. Very useful to have.
And now it's we also have to talk about sustainability. So once you get it up and running, how do you make sure that things continue going and that they don't just sort of fade away over time? Which can happen with an AdWords account, making sure that you have the resources to keep it going. So of course you have to negotiate for time and resources. And from a very, very basic level, you'd be looking at a couple of hours a week to start. And, we both started, off the side of our desks when we were doing AdWords, that this wasn't, a formal part of our roles. Eventually it did become part of our kind of job descriptions. But, our bootstrap approach is really picking up an ultimate guide to Google AdWords by Perry Marshall. So you can pick that up for $15 on Amazon. And also, connecting with a peer group online. So, N10 is also a great organization for connecting with others who are doing similar work. And, you can learn and grow as a community doing similar kind of, AdWords campaigns. If you want to take a class, you'd be looking at about $500 for a basic class. The one that we hear most often is Cardinal Path. They offer some pretty comprehensive analytics training as well as AdWords training. And if you're looking for a comprehensive, everything with them, you're looking at about $2,500 US for that training as well. Now, there is a question as well, do you train internally or do you go with a vendor? Now, I work at a nonprofit, so, I feel like I sort of uniquely positioned to speak on this, as I do, talk about Google AdWords. So internally, the great thing is you can build in-house capacity. However, the knowledge is held in staff. So if the staff member who spent a lot of time learning AdWords suddenly leaves, if they haven't cross-trained other staff in knowing AdWords, that can be a potential liability. It also may be of limited interest. So, I get really excited about AdWords, but not everyone feels the same way. You may have, a summer intern who also shares, your love of AdWords, but you can't always necessarily count on that. So you also have to, take that into account. And while it may not cost money, it will cost time to train your own expert. So you need to take that into account. Now, when working with a vendor, one of the benefits is that you can get started quickly, and they're not a staff member, so you can gauge strictly on performance, and it would be simple to replace them if you needed if it wasn't working out. So that would be an easier path that way. And when you're hiring, you're hiring an expert right off the bat. However, the thing is, it will cost money. So, that's some of the things that you have to evaluate when considering internal versus external. And don't be a supervillain. It's easy to think about, oh, if I have AdWords, I could advertise for this or that. There are strict guidelines for what you can use it for. You have to be mission aligned. It has to be something that promotes your organization. Especially if you're using the nonprofit program. So don't abuse it, because it ends up ruining it for everyone who is using the program. And at the end of the day, so long as you serve the organization, you're generally in good shape. So how do you stay a superhero? Well, here are some links to some of the blogs that Mark is frequents and recommends.
So these are things I check into on a weekly, if not daily basis. The AdwordsBlogspot.com, that's actually Google's blog. It's all the new things coming out. And take a screenshot of this if you can. The Search Engine Land, WordStream, Unbalanced, PPC Hero, all talking about AdWords and SEO and SEM in general. So fantastic resources. We're also going to talk about just things you're checking into on a weekly or monthly basis on as far as your AdWords management. On a weekly basis, log into your account, check for your alerts, check for disapproved ads, disapproved keywords and broken URLs. The nice thing is those will all show up in the top right-hand corner with a little red notification saying you'll need to look into them. Monthly things, we should be looking at our campaign budgets, review our A/B testing to see which ads are performing better, pause our low-performing ads, remove our low-performing keywords, and write new ads and add new keywords as appropriate. Again, that's more of a monthly thing. Then quarterly, this is where you kind of review trends, make sure our traffic's in an upswing or steady. Look at our impressions versus clicks. Look at our search and reports to see what's happening in there. And again, review permissions to the account just to make sure there's not old staff or volunteers who've moved on still having access to the account.
Now, we're going to bring it back to some of the harsh reality of working in AdWords. The thing is, the platform is always changing, and you need to account for that. And sometimes when we log into the platform, buttons are in a different place, and our superhero response to that is deal with it. You're a superhero, and that's part of the magic of working in AdWords. That even if you're brand new to AdWords, if the platform does change, you're on the same level as everyone else who has to relearn everything. So that's part of what keeps us on our toes when working with AdWords. That you always have to keep on constantly learning and refreshing your skills. So that should be something that excites you about working with AdWords. That it's not going to change everything, but just enough that you do have to learn a little bit more and adjust accordingly. And keep on iterating. Again, like Iron Man, you just keep on building that suit until you get this really finely honed campaigns. So how do you take it to the next level?
As you learn AdWords and you move further into it, if you're finding gaps in your account that you can't compete in the budget, like we're talking about the credit counseling pieces, one move I see people do is open a second account, a paid account with real money. And by doing so, you can open a few doors. One, you can bid over $2 cost per click. You can also move into display advertising, which is banner advertising, or text ad across the web. You can also do retargeting, which is people who are currently members or visit your website. You can serve them very timely, very effective ads. And it also opens the door for YouTube ads. In Grants Pro, this is the next level. Again, if you hit certain benchmarks, we're basically going to allow you to go from $10,000 per month to $40,000 per month, or roughly $1,300 per day. A few items to hit as far as being allowed to do so. One is you have to have conversion tracking in place. You also have to spend $9,900 of the $9,900 of the $10,000 for 2 of the trailing 6 months. Maintain an average of 1% click-through rate or higher. You have to be in the account more often. You have to be in there bi-weekly minimum doing maintenance and updating things. And you also have to submit an application. The one trick is you might hit all those benchmarks, but there's no guarantee that Google's going to approve it. If for some reason they don't, that's okay. Keep the $10,000 and be happy to have that.
In terms of managing expectations, going back to the Batman and Robin example, this isn't going to necessarily happen overnight. So, again, Google AdWords, we're presenting this in layers. We've shown you today, all the basic elements of it, but it took us, 7 years to really, get to the level where we are now. And really, it's about how much time you're willing to put in, how much you're willing to invest in terms of practicing and honing those campaigns. But again, you're not alone. We are part of a greater kind of superhero, AdWords community. So our challenge to you is, we challenge you to use your newfound powers for good, to respond to calls for help wherever people search, where people want, where people are in need, and to take up the call to unite people with the resources they need to help themselves. We, in all the organizations that we work at, we are the digital front line. We have that opportunity to create great ad campaigns to help people find the help that they need. So again, I just want to end off on this, what to do if a friend is, being bullied, is suicidal, in an abusive relationship, is depressed. I don't want to end this on a sad note, but here's the thing. We all have the opportunity with our organizations to help respond to these challenges. So our challenge to you is to take up, the challenge and to, configure some campaigns that will help your organization connect with some of these very pressing needs that are out there. So thank you very much.
All right. Sorry. Yeah, great presentation. We got some good, these guys are great comments. So that was excellent. You guys covered a lot, and there were a lot of questions that came in. We only have a couple minutes, so I'm going to try to highlight a couple from, 1 or 2 from each section very quickly. So the first one is, if you're a small nonprofit with an even smaller advertising budget, what's the best way to utilize your Google ads? So not sure $3.29 a day will fly. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, great question. And actually, I didn't mention in the presentation, but the Hospice of Waterloo Region example I used, we're a small regional nonprofit. We're very specific on who we're trying to reach. And we know that it's not going to be spending $10,000 per month. And in fact, there's some months where we spend in the range of $300 to $400 per month, because that's all the relevant traffic we have. Our region is roughly just over 700,000 people. That's as far as we go. And there's only so many people per month who need, grief counseling or hospice services. So to turn that around a bit, that's okay. Make sure you're being relevant as possible. We make sure that the people who are looking for us find us, but really don't focus on the $10,000. Focus on having the most relevant stuff for your people.
Great. And on the part where you said creating the ad, so you're saying there's a lot of testing and reiteration. So when you're having to test, you run 2 different ads simultaneously, or do you run one ad for a certain amount of time and then run the other for another time?
You can run multiple ads simultaneously, and it doesn't just have to be 2. You could actually run 3 or 4. But the key is just making sure that you're testing one variable. So that could be like the URL or the headline or the description. But sometimes we may run like 3 or 4 ads in parallel to see what performs the best out of all of them. So it doesn't have to be just a simple A/B split test. It could be an ABC or ABCD kind of test as well.
Right, and that could go on forever. So on keywords, someone mentioned their keywords often compete with themselves. So how do you prevent that? I don't know if you know what that means, but
yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. That's a main challenge for a lot of people in their accounts. How do we split out grief counseling versus family counseling versus marital counseling? And my advice on that is just really make sure we have that siloed approach. You don't want to have your 5K run ads in an events and also a fundraising side of it. Keep it over on the event side. And really, if you keep it as focused as possible, if you break it down in your silos of your campaigns and then really further theme it out down to your ad group level, they shouldn't compete too much. And if you're finding competition, maybe break some off in a more specific group and start an ad group. But really try not to compete with yourself where possible. Try and keep things on a very, very granular level inside your ad groups.
Okay, great. And I'm gonna end it off on this one last question. I don't know if you have an answer for it, but is there an average conversion rate that people can aim for?
Not really. Again, I'd say most accounts probably don't even have conversions set up. Average click-through rate, my kind of line is 2%. As someone who manages accounts every day, most nonprofits, if you're at the 1% click-through rate, but conversions, we're talking about donations or membership signups or email signups. That's really going to vary charity by charity.
Okay, that's great.
I would add to that as well, for conversion rates, it really depends what the conversion is. If you're giving away free stuff or something like that, conversion rate might be through the roof versus if it's an e-newsletter sign up or something like that. So it really depends on the organization and a combination of what's being offered.
Right. That brings us back to the goals, which people shared, which I won't have time to read out, but I want to thank our presenters for joining us today. That was a great presentation, and thanks everyone for tweeting and putting in your questions. I'm just going to grab presenter control back and just quickly let you guys know about what's coming up. So again, we are going to be sending the recording of this. Everyone was asking that. If you are earning CA credits, you can earn a credit by having attended this just now, so that's good. And tomorrow, we have Amy Sample Ward, who's the CEO of the Nonprofit Technology Network, joining us to talk about social media. So how you can use all these different tools to create your unique engagement strategy. And that's it. So thanks everyone for joining. Again, this is brought to you by Wild Apricot. We provide membership management software. You can visit our website, try us out for 30 days. And if you have any more questions about our software, you can always email coaches@wildapricot.com. So thanks, Jason, and thanks, Mark. That was fantastic. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.